Okay, so welcoming first to the stage, Nitu Kaushal of Accenture, please. Thank you.
Anywhere?
Take your pick.
All right, okay, I'll go here. Thank you.
I'll probably have this one, so you'll be in the middle. and next up is Ceren from the Nottinghamshire County Council.
Thank you. I got the message.
Right. So this will be a panel discussion. So as before, we'll be open to questions at the end. But yeah, the first question is for Nitu. And what exactly is the meaning of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
For different businesses, I see that it could mean different things, but from an Accenture perspective, we see it to be maybe an accent on gender, so there's a gender balance there, there's a skills balance, but also diversity from a skill set perspective, so bringing in people from maybe retail all the way to utilities, so there's diversity in thought there. But also from a social mobility, it could be from an ageism perspective, ethnic minorities, but also from a carer perspective as well, because we've seen with the hybrid working world, there's a very different dynamic that's been introduced from a family environment perspective. So, and also LGBT, of course. So for us, that arena covers a multitude of different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it makes a fairer society. That's one benefit. But what are the corporate benefits of this approach, of having more of an approach?
Sure. You know, the thing is, we think about our clients' customers. And if we're building solutions and capabilities to better their lives or businesses through technology, then we must make sure that we also have diversity in our thinking when we build these solutions right at the heart. And that goes from all the way from artificial intelligence coding, ethical coding, all the way to building the right solutions from a technology standpoint. So for us, from a corporate benefit perspective, I think, yes, we actually probably get much closer to our end customers in the end, I would say. But actually, it's just the right thing to do as well. You know, we care about doing the right thing, and it's one of our values. So I'd say it would be a mixture of both.
Thank you. Next question is for Ceren. Why is it so important to drive DE&I in both the private and public sectors?
I just want to comment on the previous question as well, the corporate benefit as well, just with one sentence. It is the echo. The biggest talent pool, that when you are including the diversity and inclusion into your every aspect of your businesses, any projects or any sectors in public service as well, in different departments, it will give you it will make you the talent pool bigger. So in public sector, I can talk about, if you look at me now, I'm originally not even from this country. It is my second language. Now I am representing my organization in different platforms. I am one of these, again, women in digital sector, not very often you see, and we would like to be doing this more. We want to be a role model, and then yes, you can do this. We need more women into this sector. Just opening those doors and making sure that your talent is accessible. If as a council, let's say, as the leaders, if they don't look at those possibilities of, yes, there is a commitment in there, we can collaborate, then that person won't feel the part of that organization and then just leave. So it is linking to the retention of their work.
Absolutely, reducing that churn, that employee turnover, absolutely. And yeah, just in regards to sort of, I mean, are there different approaches between the private and public sectors in terms of, like, how do you manage either of those things? What are the differences essentially that you find between the two? I
don't think there is any much difference in the public or private. It is all about the people. We are working with people, and like you said, it could be done in skills. So it doesn't matter where you use your skills. It can be in academics, it can be in public sector, private sector, even on a third-party organization. If you see diverse thinking, diverse vision, then you just need to allow them to do it, let them to use those skills.
Yeah, great answer. Just a question for Nitu in terms of best practices in recruitment and retention.
In terms of best practices, what I would say is just from hiring new people, I think we need to work a lot in every industry. For us in Accenture, our product is the people, it's the skill sets we have, it's the talent that we then build in from a multitude of different disciplines, industries, backgrounds, public, private sector. It could be startups to working in large corporates, a variety of different skill sets there. So we have to build those channels, I would say, into all of those arenas to make sure that we can bring in the right talent. So, for example, we have teams who are bringing in colleagues from automotive all the way to people who already have a consulting background. So it's quite different. And then we've got startups, people who've never worked in a large corporate culture before, and actually they're real entrepreneurs. How do we bring those great ideas into an organization like this? So for us, we build in those channels, and we do it by market, because in every country they've got specialisms in different areas. So we build those in with universities, we work with different businesses even, and partners to bring in that talent. So that's a big area for us. And then in terms of retention for talent, we are a little bit more data-driven here, just because we need to know what skills people have so we can build the best teams for the customers who need the right projects. So we would already be looking at building in the right skill set. So there's a really big wave of making sure people get to upskill all the time. So you're learning all the time, and you really feel that yesterday was different to today, and tomorrow will also be different because you're acquiring new skills. So we make sure that we enable that to happen. And Cloud First, as an organization for Accenture, now just reached just over 100,000 people at Accenture. We haven't finished our fiscal year yet, which closes on the 31st of August, and we promoted over 7,000 people.
Wow.
So that's how much we really care about skills. And once people join Accenture, we do our very best to give them the best career path to succeed. So all of that, I think, kind of comes in from a diversity and inclusion perspective, because we give people the chance to move in their careers at Accenture as well. So they're gaining new subject domain knowledge all the time.
Can we also say, if we change our recruitment styles and be careful on what kind of wordings we use in the adverts, making sure that it is reflected into inclusion, rather than using gender-based words, or asking for requirements. Like, I think we should be going forward asking for the responsibilities, or talking about responsibilities more rather than the requirements itself.
Just elaborating on that, what kind of gender-based words are we talking about here?
Like, very simply, rather than saying chairman, we could say chairperson.
Yeah.
Or there are some applications that you can search for a word which would be gender-free, because now when we are writing our adverts, we are making sure that, especially in the telecom sector, just to attract some more female into the area, we are making sure that we are not talking about coding. We are talking about vision, imagination, rather than being specific to the task they will be undertaking, talking about wider area to attract different group of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is inclusive to, regardless of female or male. It could be LGBT, it could be anybody that has that vision.
Mm-hmm. Just moving on to the generational gap. This is interesting because we actually did a feature where we worked with a couple of experts on this in terms of technology adoption over the ages, and how there was a massive problem in the IT industry with people when they were getting older, sort of being viewed as sort of almost a liability when it comes to new technologies. Oh, you know, they won't understand how to use it, too old, you know. Whereas actually certainly in terms of like cyber threats and stuff, the young people tend to take more risk when they're using technology. But yeah, just in terms of the generational gaps in terms of technology adoption, what kind of things can we do about this?
I think this also leans into like the future of work as well. You know, there's these thoughts around you study first, then you work, and then you retire. But actually, people want to reinvent themselves. That means there's a new capability of learning. And what's super interesting now is we integrate reverse mentoring. You know, in the past, we would always think about people who would mentor you would be older than you. Maybe they've got a longer tenure in a business compared to what you have. But actually, we really believe in reverse mentoring because we're seeing millennials and, you know, different generations bringing in different thought ideas, and the way that they make things happen is very different. They're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So we wholly bring that in, and because we're always constantly building in new learning capabilities, we try and make the organization as flat as possible. So that's really important for us. So that, you know, part of making everybody feel very comfortable in that space is then thinking about just being more flat as an organization, being more open to reverse mentoring. And you know, it's okay if you have an apprentice who comes in and teaches you what you didn't know before, and that's great. And I think it's about being humble as well.
I find in these kind of things that traditionally the private sector tend to be a little bit more forward-thinking and malleable and agile to these ideas than governments do. So, you know, what can governments do themselves to sort of get better at this? And because would you agree that there's sometimes a lag between them and more forward-thinking companies that, you know, are more plugged into these issues?
Especially during the last couple of years, we've seen that massively, the impact on each category, age categories, and the gap bridge, that it was very visible. For example, we experienced the homeschooling, we experienced, regardless of the age, we had to contact our loved ones virtually, we had to do our works virtually, we had to do our education virtually. So as local authorities, what we are trying to do is bringing that outstanding digital connectivity that helps our communities to have that access. They can do their shopping, they can do their education and any social aspects as well. As long as they have the connectivity, then in terms of how they will use the connectivity, how we will bridge that gap, how they will start getting used to that connectivity, we, as local authorities, as Nottinghamshire County Council, we really value having digital champions. So we promote digital champions in each area, so then those people feel free to contact and get learn how to use the digital connectivity. So these digital champions, for example, they go and care homes, teach them how to do online shopping, how to use FaceTime when they want to contact. Now a 5-year-old child even knows how to mute and unmute on Zoom. So it's just important thing is, I think, to how we can reach and expand that information out.
Absolutely, absolutely. It always interests me how sometimes people convince themselves that they can't use a certain technology, and I think it's, you know, they're telling themselves that a lot of the time, and you just think, well, it's probably not as hard as it looks.
As long as they have to use it and they learn it.
Exactly, and it's I mean, we've probably all got parents like that we you know, spend time trying to teach them how to use these things. But just in terms of Ceren, in terms of like using data to drive decision making about who to hire, how do we do that?
I think it is not sometimes it is how I can explain. So you can check, for example, the social media data. Or do some search on what those people, project for 5G Connected Forest, the one I am leading. If they search on that project before the interviews, then they could find out more about what is the achievements, because then given access to that person who is interviewing, allowing the asks related questions. So when we talk about data-driven, there are lots of portals that you can access those data. Number of gender in that area, from schools, from their universities, where they work for. Then you go to their organization, find out the departments they work. So rather than, it's not references, getting reference. We don't take references anymore. We just do research on LinkedIn, for example. And also, what we also think about data, sharing the interview questions in advance. We are considering those things now. Because sometimes it can be a bit controversial, but it will allow people to prepare for their best when they come to the interview. So yeah,
try and
inclusive.
take the stress out of it.
Absolutely, just being inclusive.
Yeah. I think we'd all probably be happy without a stressful interview process. Nitu, just in terms of like the adoption of widespread 5G infrastructure, how can that help to improve DE&I in terms of the telecommunications industry?
Well, it's a big one, right? Because 5G is coming. It was coming many years ago. It's still coming. It's got a while to go yet before we have mass adoption. But I think what's super interesting now is because 5G is more about business data communication and you're empowering people and creating new types of services, everything comes through some sort of device. And the ability for people to have access to a sort of device is much better than where it was like 10 years ago. So I think just that in itself allows people to play away and find new services or ways of learning things that they weren't able to do before. So I think the advent of augmented reality and virtual reality, creating these kind of new experiences, is going to really revolutionize the way that people learn and absorb and do something with new information. And I think that's going to be the big change. It's all going to be about experiences we see. So even for me, if I want to go away and learn something, I'd probably go away and learn it in a different way. And Accenture, we're already trying to enforce some of that. So some of our learning comes through the metaverse. So we create an avatar, we create a new environment for people to learn because we see the future moving in that place. So it's not just going to be an online experiences, there's going to be a physical place that you will immerse yourself into. And we see 5G to be a really big enabler for that, as well as Edge. And bringing all of these really great technologies together to bring new experiences for people to learn remotely and become upskilled is a fantastic thing.
Now, I think this next question is more regarding, I think it can affect anyone in this room, certainly anyone that gets into a management position. I think a lot of people that I've worked with, certainly they would never want to be upsetting anyone, or they would always want to be inclusive, but sometimes the education isn't there, or sometimes the tools aren't there so they know what to do. What kind of resources are accessible to guide people to be better? Because as we also know, sometimes it might take a while for an organisation to change their culture, so sometimes you've got to almost be the change yourself and then be an advocate for that in your company. So what kind of resources are out there? Are there organisations or websites that people can check and to help them with these kind of challenges?
Well, there's a lot of freemium out there, and I think people would already be using a lot of that. But what we also do is work with our local municipalities across the globe, and there's this big push of smart cities. So there's a big angle, not just in terms of connecting cities and getting more data from them, but there's also a real angle around learning. It's about upskilling your local workforce. There's a big drive around building small, medium-sized enterprises who can flourish in the economy that you're building up. So we see that, yes, there's a load of stuff online that you can learn from a freemium perspective, but there's a different drive happening behind the scenes where, local councils are working with tech companies to really do that local drive, because, you know, post-COVID, our SME businesses have been really hurt. So we're working out ways around how we can kickstart that, whether it be through learning, leveraging the technology that we're building together with a lot of other different companies. So it's more about building that right outcome.
On the back of 5G Connected Forest, we developed our innovation center, and that innovation center is now running 5G career skills program. Already 1,000 students already passed those programs, completed their programs, and now we are looking to expand that to the rest of the country. What are we trying to do with that skills program is, even though we have those 2 robot dogs that today we've been demonstrating, we still need the skills to control those remote dogs. We need that digital skills in place to generate new business cases, so then those innovative solutions can help businesses like SMEs to grow, expand their business, and also which will end up for very important for Nottinghamshire County Council and all local authorities, job creation. So this is to bring that economic growth to your county. You need to create new jobs. To be able to create new jobs, you need to utilize the digital aspects, digital innovations, and to be able to do that skills. As local authority, it is very important to collaborate with your universities, with the colleges, schools, so then we are trying to get those slots from their academic year review, and then we can put those skills programs in. We managed to do that in Nottinghamshire. Our next plan is to expand that to the rest of the country.
Amazing, amazing. Are there any questions from the audience at all for our panel? No? Just in regards to sort of what sort of positive steps you could take, you know, for the people that are sort of here today, in terms of what are some quick wins to address? I mean, these are obviously 3 massive areas in themselves. So, but you know, what's the sort of a good starting point, especially if you maybe in a smaller company that hasn't got a big corporate culture yet? What could you do to be the change you want to see, so to speak?
I think it starts at the individual themselves. That's where we see DE&I to really play a strong role. Every single person has a role to play in this. And I see that for us, like, I know it's a large corporate, but even within there, we've got a really big job to do in terms of educating people. So if this is top of mind for people, they will then factor those thoughts in every meeting they drive, in every coaching session they have with their teams, with every client that they work with. So they adopt the right language, like you were talking about, the ways that they need to work, becoming more respectful overall. So that awareness, I think there's a really big job for us to do. So we create communities, and we have like an internal Facebook type thing, and we create communities, and they're global, and we give people the chance to share their personal point of view and perspective. People meet up, either virtually or in person now, and that's just giving people a really strong topic to talk about, and it's something that they then go away and share. They obviously then go away and share within their other networks. So like you were talking about having digital champions, we also have champions within each of the focus areas for DE&I, for Accenture, and that's a really great way for us to spread the word and build that culture that we really want to instill.
What would be my advice as well? Stop making a decision from gut. Just make sure that you watch the data and you collaborate with the right people. For local authorities, it's really important that you know your area, as I mentioned before, you know your people, what your community really needs, and also how they will feel that they are committed to work with you. So I will definitely say that we always try to do everything inclusive. I mentioned earlier in my earlier slot that Nottinghamshire has 3 districts and borough councils within the poorest social mobility districts in the UK. To be able to bring that connectivity to those areas, we are giving the opportunity for them to access to those facilities, having access to those skills, having access to those businesses. Also, we want to use those innovative solutions for the new generation to stay in the county. To be able to do that, we need to be considering DE&I, so then they won't just follow up what their gut is.
Yeah, thank you. That's great answers. I mean, as you might be aware, we have a March 8 stage, so this is very much a key topic for us to be discussing this in regards to STEM and women in STEM. But I've even seen it myself as the editor on the technology portfolio in regards to the fact that ServiceNow got in touch with us and said, "Oh, come to our big event." So I sent our AI editor, Catherine, as a journalist, and she was the only female journalist in the room. So thank God she was there, you know. But I mean, I guess it kind of made her a novelty. But you don't want to be a novelty, I suppose. You want to be what needs to be normal.
It's getting better now.
Hopefully, yeah.
5 years ago, it wasn't even that much.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll come see you. We need more mics.
I need to. A question for you, really. So we sat here a year ago. We had various amazing speakers, some of them from the likes of TM Forum, who at that time talked to us about the need for and the trials with the IDS, the Inclusion and Diversity Score. Don't quote me on it, but I think Accenture were part of their first trial, so you might know a bit about it already. But I just wondered how important you both maybe felt having such an accreditation or a score, you know, actually having companies understand that we don't just talk about it, that we don't just post something on our LinkedIn and stick a badge up and say we're doing it, but actually that we can almost be governed by it, you know, and it's so important now that we need that. I just wonder what your thoughts were on the IDS score, if you know about it, or what your thoughts are in general on kind of, I don't want to say policing it, but monitoring and governing, if you will, if that's a better word.
Sure. Look, it has to be data-driven, and things don't change unless you implement real change points within decision-making processes. So that could be with new hiring. It could be about sharing the results overall. So, you know, there's this whole angle around how sustainable you are as a business. So tools come out around how you can measure your sustainability index. It's very similar. So we would have real targets within certain parts of our business where they need to make those improvements, and it might be a 5-year plan. Just because something like this doesn't change overnight. We can't see it changing overnight. So we see that building in some goals that are collaborative, that everybody becomes part of, and we have specific work streams that work towards it, really help us. So we would work with universities, for example, because we want to bring in apprentices. They have the best skills. We are lacking engineers, software developers. How do we tap into some of that really amazing talent, bring it into the business early? But they may not come and work with Accenture directly day one. It might be part of their 3-year plan, but that's our long-term investment into pools of really great talent like that. So I think it has to be data-driven. I think this data is really important because it helps us also keep us in check of whether we're doing the right thing. And we work with our partners, our customers to do exactly that as well, because we have thousands of people working on a client, and together we might also have a shared goal as well. And that's a really nice way of being able to influence a local community, a local client, building in the right talent pool across their customers as well. So for us, it's a long-term game. There are some short-term things that we can do as well, but we definitely see this as a long-term.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, just from the perspective of one of the editors of the magazine, Technology Magazine, we're always interested in this topic and we're always covering it. So more than welcome to get in touch with me and even influence our editorial strategy in terms of what we talk about and how we talk about it. Because I think it's one thing for us to be like, oh, well, we think that's kind of the way to do it, but why not just get it directly from you, and we'll shape it and craft it around the narratives that need to be discussed. And so it isn't just discussed in March 8, but it's discussed across our portfolio as well. So at least we can do our part in some small way. So, but thank you both.
That's really great.
Cheers. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent.